Alrighty, we are sitting down to film another video. Today we will be reviewing a video game once again. And the video game we are reviewing today is Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. The reason that I'm kind of ready to review this game is that I've been playing it the last couple of weeks or so. I'm on the final sort of paces of the game, getting the rest of the collectibles before I prompt the final mission and stuff like that. I've actually played this game before when it first came out on PC, and then I ended up getting the PS5 version shortly before the sequel came out to not only see if the upgraded graphics or this version of it would be interesting to play, but also to try to get the Platinum Trophy on PlayStation Network. Now, let alone this game was also on deep sale, I think because they went ahead and gave us the PS4 version for free on PSN. And maybe they didn't anticipate that nobody would want to then buy the PS5 version. But I'm pretty sure I picked this up for $20 brand new from GameStop like a week before it came out free. So I guess joke's on me. But I do like that I have the physical copy. So there you go. Now, what is going on with Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order? For one thing, I have to say that this game is actually a good Star Wars game, and in this modern year, it tells a decent Star Wars story that is not infected with any weird Disney Star Wars headcanon that I'm going to try to avoid for the rest of my life. But for the most part, this story takes place in between the end of the Clone Wars and the events of like the original trilogy, because what has happened is Order 66 has happened. The Inquisitors are out and they are killing the remaining Jedi, and it's been that way for a while, but the good guys have not prevailed, right? So the Empire is in control and the Jedi are in hiding. One of which is our main character, Cal Kestis, we see him in the beginning of the game on the planet Baraka as a scrapper, and he has cut himself off from the Force entirely because he's basically been in hiding since he was a kid, because his master and him were attacked during Order 66 when he was a young Padawan. And for those that don't know, I'm sure if you're already watching this video, you're very well aware of kind of the Star Wars lore and stuff like that. But what Order 66 is when Chancellor Palpatine gave out the order to all of the clone troopers that were either stationed with Jedi or a part of their own faction to go hunt them, to basically turn on the Jedi that they were working for and kill them because the Sith had taken control of the Empire. And so our main character, Cal Kestis, in that situation was able to escape with his life, but his master died, and he's, up until the events of the beginning of the game, he has been in hiding and has not used the Force at all, and he's pretty much given up on being a Jedi. Now, the impetus for his adventure as a Jedi that begins this game is essentially he's trying to do his job as a normal scrapper, and Imperial ships are coming through, messing around with his planet, but they're not really doing anything that's out of the norm. But through the events of his job, which is slightly dangerous, him and his buddy get put in a situation where he ends up using the Force to save his friend. If I'm remembering correctly, it's actually quite a bit ago when I played the opening scene, but in doing so, he basically sends out a giant signal to everybody else who's Force sensitive, including the Inquisitors, that there is somebody who is a Jedi on this planet. And from that point forward, he's kind of on the escape route until he meets up with the crew that you play most of the game with. And for those wondering who are the Inquisitors, they are a group of Sith that work for the Empire that specifically go to hunt down different Jedi. And if at any point I mess up Star Wars lore in this, my bad. I am pretty well versed, but not to the level of people that have read the Legends content and stuff like that. So, there you go. But that is kind of the start of this. He ends up becoming friends with This guy right here who like pilots the ship is like a smuggler, and then Seer, however they say her name, she is a former Jedi Master that has also closed herself off from the Force, but believes in Cal and wants him to help them on their mission. And you might be asking yourself, what's your mission? Well, the big thing that's going on is that there is a holocron, which is basically the way to store data in this universe, that contains a list of all the Force-sensitive children that currently exist in the universe. Meaning that if the bad guys get this holocron in their possession, then they can kill the rest of the remaining budding possible Jedi that could come to stand against the Sith, or even turn all of them into Sith, maybe making like an even more horrible situation. But the way that the Sith are, they would kill those people for sure. They don't want anybody else challenging them. But instead, our group wants to go discover where this holocron is and get it for themselves so that they can not only protect these Force-sensitive children from being killed by the Empire, but also hopefully find them, bring them together, and create some sort of rebellion or, restart the path of training Jedi. And in the beginning, our main character is not really so, cool with that. Or I don't know if it's necessarily that, but he's just not really believing in his own destiny. But as the story goes on and you get reconnected with the Force and you learn more about what's happening as a part of the story, Cal becomes more, willing to go along with his path in this story and becomes a Jedi once again. And he even has a cool quote. Through the events of this story, you find out that one of the Inquisitors was actually Seer's Padawan, and that when the Empire came, she had all but zero choice other than death and to become one of the Inquisitors. And then eventually kind of Stockholm Syndrome takes place, and now she's the second sister, which is, one of the head Inquisitors, and she's essentially trying to bring Cal over to the dark side in the same way that Seer's trying to gas him up to get him to be a Jedi again. By talking about how Seer had, given herself to the dark side to break out of her imprisonment when she was captured by the Empire, and that's why Seer cut herself off from the Force and all that kind of stuff. I'm not going to go through the whole story of the game because I want you guys to play the game, but that's kind of the vibe of what's going on. And so, in this game, you get to travel to some planets we've never heard of before and others that we have, like Kashyyyk and Dathomir. But the main story is following the breadcrumbs left behind by another Jedi named Endor Cordova, and he knows of the existence of this holocron, but we don't know if he's alive, dead, whatever. But we do know that we're going to track down his breadcrumbs and find it to ensure that those people are safe. And what this game turns into is, and it's kind of good for the gameplay loop, but like as you're going on, you're also exploring the side lore of the existence of this alien species called the Zepho that were able to use the Force, and they have all these big temples and shrines and burial sites built to their religion, which involved using the Force, both on the positive side and the dark side. I guess the light and the dark. And so through a course of this story, Cal is going and exploring these temples and sort of almost untangling the traumatic memories of him training in these different Force abilities with his master, and then you gain the ability to pull, push, throw your lightsaber, repulse, the whole gamut. But it plays much more like a Souls-like game where there's these meditation circles that act as bonfires, and you have a very limited amount of Force you can use and health, and all of those things expand over time. Like in the beginning of the game, you essentially have very little Force to use, but you're at the end of the game like I am now, I'm using the Force all the time, right? Which I think that progression was actually good. It just is a daunting game to get into in the beginning because, if you've played other Star Wars games, most of the time they give you a little bit of power in the beginning and the stormtroopers are kind of fodder. And they still are in this, but with the damage that you take of being so high and the bonfires working how they do, where if you want to rest and regen and get all your health back and all your health potions, I guess your stims back, to be able to heal yourself out in the wild, you have to reset the whole map and all the enemies appear once again. So if you've been fighting a tough enemy and you finally get to that meditation circle and you heal up, well, guess what? You're going to be right back in the action. Which in some cases is actually really nice. Like later on in the game, I actually enjoyed that, because now that I have enough stims and they heal me up enough and I'm strong enough, I get to strategically pick when I'm going to heal and stuff like that. Maybe if I want to get more XP or something like that. But initially, it is a much more daunting task. And when you come against some of the legendary enemies throughout the course early on in the game, they can just absolutely wipe you. And on top of that, the controls in this game are good, but they're buggy. And there are times where you are literally doing something that the game has taught you is the correct way to handle these enemies. That's another way that it's very Souls-like, in the way that each enemy has its certain way that you're supposed to deal with them and a cadence, and so you're supposed to learn from the game what you're supposed to do. It's not necessarily open-ended, right? But like, for example, the temple guards, some of them you can pull the energy core out of their body and that freezes them to where you can attack them. Whereas if you didn't do that, you would get an onslaught of different strong attacks coming at you when they power up. But another mechanic that's in this game that's Souls-like is that if an enemy kills you and you haven't gotten all the way to earning another skill point to go towards putting into your skill tree to upgrade, all of that experience from your experience bar stays with that enemy, and you have to go find them and kill them to get it back. Otherwise, the next time you die, you'll lose that forever. So that's kind of the gameplay. I would say if you were going to come into this game and expect it to be like this game, you'll be a little bit sad, because Cal Kestis is not like Starkiller. He does not have an ungodly amount of force to use, and he doesn't have access to all the crazy force powers that Starkiller does. But the game actually does play very well despite the sometimes buggy controls. And I think the story is pretty Star Wars, not Disney Star Wars, but normal Star Wars. And it plays into the theme of, like I said before, one of the quotes that he says in this is that having a lightsaber doesn't make you a Jedi. And it's like Cal, through this journey, is learning what it is to be a Jedi, to be a high integrity person, to be a good guy who wants to help people out in the universe and stuff like that. As opposed to like the Sith methodology, where you want to have dominance over people and effectively win at all costs, right? So I really like it in that aspect. I like the way the gameplay plays. I like the way that I actually end up liking the Souls like elements in the game once I got going. In the beginning, it's a little bit daunting. So with all that being said, I think that this is a really good game, and I don't want to talk about it too much more, because this will kind of take away all the fun from you and go and experiencing it yourself. But I highly recommend playing this game, and if I plug it into the score system, despite the fact that parts of this game are buggy, other parts of it can be annoying when the bugs don't work out correctly. I guess what I'm trying to say is it could have used an entire last round of polish that, because it's a Respawn EA game, you're not going to get. Like, all their development time is on Apex Legends, if you know what I'm saying. And EA doesn't really care about shipping a game that's not finished. But that being said, the game is absolutely playable. It's absolutely cinematic in a way that every Star Wars game should be. And I think that, at some point, they're going to loop this character into the continuity, into the canon continuity that's happening with Disney right now. And I just think that opportunity would be really cool, given who he is and kind of how this story develops. So all that being said, I recommend this game. If I'm plugging in my score system, I'm going to give it a low 4. I think that things about this game are really, really good, but there are other areas where it doesn't deliver as far as like giving you that full freedom Star Wars experience that it could have. And I just, hopefully, I already have it, like I said. I'm kind of waiting to play this game, and I've just been stuck with other games beforehand. So we'll see if in the sequel, now that my character is supposed to be stronger and more well-versed in the Force, if some of those limitations drop away. But, I just wish that essentially you had more Force meter, because once you become a Savage Jedi, you shouldn't have to... It should be easy to deal with almost every Stormtrooper type enemy, right? And then they even have these Purge Troopers that I agree should be harder, but they in and of themselves can just be a pain in the ass because they have shock batons, and if the dodge button doesn't work like it's supposed to, or the block button doesn't come up even though you're holding it, and then you just get shocked to hell, it's really annoying. So those would kind of be my only takeaways of the game. But that being said, I'm going to give it a low 4. This is the quick review on Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. If you really like Star Wars and you're getting back into the lore kind of like I am, because I am interested in the fact that Ahsoka is continuing where Clone Wars and Rebels left off, I would definitely recommend this game as a Star Wars person. So that being said, that's the review. It'll probably take me another 6 months to get to the end of the second game. But, yeah, that's the review.